How we do this? We are the truest. Got these fangs super sharp, your shit toothless. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish. In the graveyard, acting foolish. Finna dance with the devil to no music. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish.
I don't know how to begin episodes of podcasts. Hello, this is Ghoulish. I am Max Booth, an undead host. And on today's program, I am talking to Rhonda Jackson Garcia, aka LJ Joseph. She should be no stranger to the podcast at this point, as she has been on multiple episodes of the live recordings from the Ghoulish Book Fest as a panelist, and now she has joined me as an actual one-on-one guest for the show. We're talking about Palance today, the tie-in to the previous two episodes, which were about kids and teenagers, and now we're talking about Palance, the unplanned trilogy. I don't know why this happened, why I did these three episodes, but that's how it happened. And now it's a trilogy. Tell everybody, recommend it, and when you make a list of your favorite trilogies, say your favorite trilogy is the Ghoulish Kids, Teenagers, Palance episodes. Those are the ones you like the most. You love them. You hope the best for them. Rhonda has a collection coming out in August 7th, called Hell Hath No Sorrow, Like a Woman Haunted. I have a link to pre-order the collection in the show notes. I think you should pick it up. I've read some of the stories from it, and they're great. She's a great writer, and the stories are just really excellent, and I highly recommend them. I don't think I have anything else to say. Just tune into the episode. And if you are still in the book spending mood, go on over to ghoulishbooks.com. Buy some of the books I've written and published. That's my company, baby. Welcome to Ghoulish. 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 Oh, God, I hate talking. I hate it. Okay. Here's the episode. On today's episode, you wanted to discuss Palance. Do you want to maybe explain why that is and how that ties into your new collection?
Oh yeah, for sure. One thing about parenthood, like I used to think that I was only afraid of the things I was afraid of, right? But then becoming a parent exacerbated all of that stuff. It just changed everything. So I was already afraid of like this whole trough of things, but then I had kids, and now I'm afraid of this whole other trough of things. Um, and I think that just the whole road to parenthood, like not just the biological and psychological things that have to happen to prepare you for that, as prepared as we ever are. But then there's also like the idea of childbirth, and there's toddlerhood, and then there's like pre-puberty, and then there's like teenagerhood, and there's also still adult. Like you still have to parent your adult children, right? And so one of the overarching themes in my collection is, especially seeing them all together, is that it's very apparent that I have lots of anxieties about parenting, about the pregnancy experience. It's just kind of never ending.
That's a really good point. I think that's something that a lot of like movies and books don't seem to think about is like just because the kid is now grown, the parenting does not end. I mean, I think about my own brothers who are much older than I am. Like the youngest one is 10 years older than I am. And they're always like, can we have some money? Can we move home? But I was kicked out of my house. Can I live with you? It doesn't end.
Yes, it never ends. I mean, so we have so my husband and I have this huge blended family, right? And so we have between us 11 kids, and of the 11, there
11.
yes, there are 11 between us.
Good God. Okay.
Yeah. So thankfully, one, two, three, four. So six of them are technically adults, right? Three of them live away from home. They haven't come back home and they're fine. And they kind of range in age from 29 to 25. But we have a 23-year-old who left home and then came right back. We have one that just turned 18 and just graduated high school, and she's probably going to be here for a bit, right? And then Kiki, of course, is a whole different thing. She is disabled. She won't be able to live on her own, and she's 20, right? And so in house, we have three adult children as it is, although I don't necessarily, put Kiki and the 18-year-old in that whole situation. But we have like six other kids who are minors and who are here at home. And it's just really difficult for young people nowadays. Like, it's just the opportunities that I had, as a Gen Xer. Like, I was able to buy a house as a single mom. I mean, a brand new house, because Texas, right? The cost of living is a lot lower. I was a single mom. I had one kid, and I just had like a regular person job. I was able to buy a whole house. Nowadays, they can barely even rent apartments. Things are just really bad for them. So they do stay at home a lot longer now. Like, I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that either. I think it's really much an American viewpoint that, like, oh, you're 18, get your ass out of the house, get a job, and don't come back. That seems so odd. Like, that's not what family means.
It really isn't. And I think that it's also culturally specific, right? Like,
Mhm.
like you say, it is a very American thing. But I mean, as Black people, like, we tend to, especially here in the South, I'm sure Northern Black people are probably like, yeah, us too. But like, we already believe in that kinship. Like, there's this whole community thing. Like, sometimes we're living with people as family, and they're our fictive family, right? They're not actually our biological family. So you have to kind of bond together as a community that way. And we do not believe in kicking kids out. Like,
Yeah.
we are not going to kick a kid out and be like, boom. No. Now, of course, if there was something illegal or crazy involved, I still don't think we kick them out. No,
Right.
we handle them a little differently. But the plan is always, you still have to work towards an eye of becoming independent, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know that's hard, but you still have to think, you have to try to do it, because everybody needs to kind of live that life. But if you think about other cultures, you have different generations living under the same roof, and I think that's fun. Like, you
Yeah.
got grandma right down the hallway, like, that's wonderful.
Yeah. At a certain point, when I was 16 and 17, we got a new house because we were living in a motel for a while. We got a house with one of my brothers. Well, actually, at one point, two of my brothers moved in, and they both had kids. So we had them living with us, several tiny children, their spouses. It was a huge, packed house, and it was a lot of fun. It was never a billing second.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. I have, as an adult, lived with my sister and her husband before. And so it's a different vibe. So our kids kind of grew up with that whole idea of, well, nanny is here, uncle is here.
Mhm.
There's always a whole different set of adults who they can go to for stuff. So I think that there's a really big benefit to having multiple generations in the household. I mean, it's really helpful though if everybody is kind of, contributing to the community though.
Right. Yeah.
Not just financially, but like, physically, like, do your chores. Like, there are way too many of us here for
Mhm.
me to clean up after everybody. I just won't. I can't. I'm not gonna do
You
that.
shouldn't have to. Yeah, everyone should pitch in, and everything's so much easier if one person's doing laundry and the dishes and just picking up and just vacuuming and dusting. It makes no sense. No sense at
Exactly.
all. Everybody has a body.
Yeah, exactly. And even Kiki has her things she has to do within her
Yeah.
village. She
Yeah.
can do what she gotta do. Everybody else have to do what they gotta do too.
Right. So what was so any topic we talk about right now that's too like private, just tell me, we can skip over it.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
Okay. So what was your childhood like? Like, did you have a lot of people living with you at the time? What were your parents like?
Yeah, well, I didn't. We only had, so my dad was at home kind of off and on. right? So when we were younger, he was there for a longer stretch of time. So I have two siblings. I have a sister and a brother. So we grew up in early childhood with the mom and the dad, but it was always a tumultuous household, right? It was always that kind of, oh my gosh, are we still doing this kind of thing? And so then my father would leave. And then everything would actually be a lot happier. And then he might come back. And then everybody was like sad again. But the biggest things I remember about childhood is, first of all, having a good time with my mom. It's almost like she wanted to cover over all the other stuff, like all the bad experiences. And so we had the best fun with her. She was always supportive of all the insanity we wanted to pursue. Even to this day, she's always just like, oh, well, I'm your biggest cheerleader. I'm like, Mama, I know you are. You really are.
What are some examples of this?
So for instance, when I was in high school, I was already writing, and I had been writing forever. And so I wanted to start submitting to magazines, right? So of course I'm writing all this angsty teenage poetry. And so Mama used to read those romance confession magazines. Well, at about 16, 17, she didn't explicitly say that I could actually read them. They used to hide those from us all the time. But I was sneaking them, right? And I was like, but Mama, I have the perfect poem that I can send to them. And so she just kind of broke down and was like, you know what, fine, whatever, dude, whatever. I can't stop you from reading all this stuff, whatever. And so I got my first poem published at 17. And I was really stoked about that. And so she kind of was like, okay, I mean, you really are great at this thing. So, I mean, okay, keep going. Oh, you're going to go to college, though, and you're going to get a degree, but go ahead and do the writing thing. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, she's always been, she's not that parent. Now, don't get me wrong. She had a lot to say about what high school I went to, because at that time, we they have magnet schools here. Well, you're from Texas, you know how this go.
Oh, actually, I don't. I'm from Indiana.
Oh, are you from Indiana? Okay,
Yeah.
So here in Texas, there are schools that are like magnet schools. And what that means is that you can attend that school, which might be out of your home district. Like that may not be the school closest to you, but if you get accepted into that magnet program, then you can go to the school that's not in your district.
Okay.
Otherwise, they very strictly monitor who can go to what schools, right? And
that seems problematic, but
it's highly problematic, and we can talk about that too. But when I was in high school, so Mama, I wanted to go to the performing arts high school. And not because I was a good writer, I knew that, but I thought I wanted to be a dancer too. And so she was like, but you can do that without going to school for it. You're going to go to this other school that has like this data entry program. It's like, I'm in old. And so computers were relatively new-ish. And the electronic typewriter thing was new, the computer data entry. But I'm really glad that she did that, because that's where I learned how to type and do data entry. And that is the most insane skill you need as a writer. Again, able to type, to get the words down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm really glad that she did that. And then when it came time to go to college, I thought I was going to go off to California. And she knew that I wasn't ready. And she was like, yeah, no, we don't have the money anyway. They're not paying for it all the way. You should probably go to school here.
You live in Houston, I believe?
I live right outside of Houston. Yeah, so I'm in Pearland, which is...
Oh, yes.
It's a suburb of Houston.
Is that where you grew up as well, or did you move around?
No, I actually grew up inner city Houston.
Okay.
So I grew up in Third Ward in Houston. I didn't move to the burbs till I got older.
Yeah, I gotcha. And when did you become a mom?
Oh man, so that was one of those insane things that you just don't think is ever going to happen.
Yes.
Like, when you're in your early 20s, I was 21, had the world by its tail. I was like, oh, I am invincible. No, you're not. Here's the baby person. And the whole time that I was pregnant, I thought I could handle it, because I was that kid that when I was about 12, I would start telling people I want 6 kids. I really did.
Yeah.
I was a kid that used to look at the National Enquirer, and back in the day, they used to have these spotlights of children that needed families, and were always special needs kids. And so I always said, I'm gonna adopt some babies. I want 6 of them all together. We can just mix them up. I can have some, I can go adopt some. And it never occurred to me when I was that young, well, there's a certain biology to this or finance to this. You gotta have the money to adopt, you gotta have the biology to have them. I didn't necessarily want to have a husband. I just wanted the kids.
Yeah.
So when I came up pregnant, I was like, okay, well, here we go. It's go time. But I wasn't married.
1 out of 6. Let's go.
Let's get started. There were so many changes, of course, to your body when you're pregnant, but that was fine with me. I didn't care for the state of being pregnant. It made me feel really off balance. But at the same time, I thought it's temporary. The problem started for me when childbirth did not go how the book said.
Yeah.
See, the books were saying these things would happen or maybe happen, and everything that happened was nowhere in any book. And so that's when I started to panic and started to try to rethink it. I mean, like, the baby's coming, right?
Yeah.
And when he came, we were in the hospital, and he had to go to NICU because he was about 5 weeks early. And I kind of had high blood pressure and some things. So when they got ready to send us home, I'm kind of looking at them like, oh, wait. You're gonna let me take this little human home with me? Are you sure you want to do that? I don't know if that's a great idea.
Do you know who I am?
Like, we're not gonna make it. And this was back in 93, right? So it's before caller ID was really a thing. And my poor baby would just scream. He screamed the whole time when we got home. And I was frazzled. My mama was frazzled. We were like, we don't know what's wrong. Just call the hospital. Those nurses, as soon as they picked up the phone, and I said, my baby won't stop crying. They knew who I was. They addressed me by name. I'm sure somebody wants some money on the pot saying, how much y'all want to bet that she is going to call us?
Yeah.
So it was a thing. I mean, and what the magic trick was for that time was swaddling. Like, I had no idea about wrapping up a baby burrito, but I did that, and my newborn stopped hollering. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this. I might be able to do this, I guess. And the little baby burrito is like 28 now. So
he's still wrapped. I mean, like it.
He's way too tall now. You're like, Mama, really? It was an experience, and it's a thing that you think you're ready for, and you're just not. You just have to do it. You just got to do it, and it and make it do what it do. I mean, we can't do it.
And how do you think, I mean, this wasn't your first kid, obviously, as you've said. When did you begin writing fiction about being a parent? Like, when did that come into it?
Oh, so that came into it during that first pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, people will talk about the hormones, varying levels, and they'll talk about how emotional you are. The one thing that I didn't know, though, was how your own trauma will resurface with those hormones. So I've always had really vivid dreams. And of course, having the daddy issues with the terrible father that I had, I would have this recurring dream where my father ate my child. Like, he would just eat the baby. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with my brain and what is happening. And maybe if I write it down, it'll be okay. And so that is the storyline that became Bloodline, which is one of the stories in this collection.
Excellent.
It's like, oh my gosh, it was insane.
What's funny is, and I can cut this if I'm spoiling too much, is you sent me a story called, I think it's Mama's Babies. That is the opposite of that. Well, the kids eat the dad.
Exactly. I know. You know, I have this thing. It's not until you see all your work as a body that you start seeing your own quirks and your own trauma peeking up. And one of the things that I'm good for is folks eating other folks. The monster somebody got to get eaten up. That's it. Somebody got to get eaten. So and that was the total opposite. So even like that story happened from a nightmare that I had and I could not shake. It upset me so badly. Because at that point I had I didn't have any other kids until I got married. And so then I married a man that didn't have any children. And so that kind of creates this situation where you go, oh, If he wants kids, okay. I do want 6. I guess we better go ahead and get started on these other 5, right?
I did promise when I was 12 I would have 6. I'm not going to go back on my vows.
Exactly. So we kind of had 3 other ones in pretty quick succession, right? And then, of course, with Kiki being the older of those next 3, it was kind of a thing where I'm still trying to balance how to take care of her and her needs. But then I got these other 2 little babies. And so my dreams never stopped being as vibrant as they always had been. They just were getting worse and worse. And I had a dream that they were turning into zombies, that I was overwhelmed and I wanted to leave. Like, there were lots of times that I felt like, what would happen if I just get on the bus and go? Yeah. Like, and I think almost every parent has at least 2 of those moments, right, in lifetime, where they're just like, I could just leave and everybody will be fine. But of course, you're like, no, they won't be fine. I'm not gonna leave. I'm just gonna go to Starbucks and then I'll come back and everybody will be fine.
I'm just gonna have this brief fantasy that I am doing it. Living this full moment. Have you by any chance read a collection by Nathan Ballingard called North American Lake Monsters?
No, I haven't, but I have heard of it. Like, it seems like something I need to read.
You would love it. The opening short story entertains this exact fantasy mindset that we're talking about right now. Just when you brought it up, that's what I thought of. Really good short story. I would highly recommend it. Do you think so? Do nightmares tend to inspire most of the things you write?
They do.
Yeah,
they absolutely do. I can point to probably at least half the stories that I write. They come from nightmares. I learned early on that if I that's the only way to exercise them. Like, otherwise they literally haunt me. Like Mama's Baby, that premise like haunted me. Every time I thought about it, I would tear up, and it was so raw for years. Like, for years. Wow. And finally I got to the point where I was like, listen, if you go ahead and write it though, then maybe it'll stop haunting you. And to an extent it did. Of course, there's still this very big fear that something's going to happen to my kids, which of course is what that taps into. Like, as a parent, you're always concerned that you can only do so much to protect your babies. I mean, now they're teenagers and adults, and I'm still thinking, how can I protect them? How can I keep stuff from happening to them?
Yeah. Well, if anything, it must be more terrifying, right? Because now you can't look at them constantly.
Exactly.
You have no control.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's the thing that I try to get them to understand. Like, I have a newly minted 16-year-old, just turned 16 in March. And he has hit the ground running. He has already had an interview and a reply email from he's applying for jobs. And the whole time I'm thinking, well, what about when you have to go to work? When you have to come back from work? Like, I don't want you riding a bike in our suburban neighborhood, because that's, you're a tall Black kid. That is not going to go over well. I mean, my husband still gets stopped coming out of this neighborhood, and we've been here for years, right? Yeah. And I'm like, the 23-year-old is out at night, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to tell him he needs to come home, but I'm concerned. Are you okay? Are you on the side of the road? Did the car stop? Do you have gas money? Like, are you on a date with somebody that's going to say something crazy, and then you're going to be in jail or under the jail? Or, I mean, it's just never ending. You worry about them, and it's not what you can do,
I mean, there's no possible way I can even relate to anything, but just it has to be so goddamn scary. Like, just being like a Black parent of teenage kids. Right.
It is. Oh, it totally is. I mean, and my daughters, like, I tell them, it's not as much of it's a different kind of fear. Right? Because you're thinking, you only see that you want to go to prom this weekend, but I teach young people. I have taught dual credit classes in the high school during prom weekends. When I tell you, those students had so many stories about baby mamas fighting, and they had shanks at the beach parties, and I'm just like, they talk about the edibles, the drugs, and I'm thinking, oh no. So I know you just want to go to prom and go hang out at the beach with your friends, but I'm telling you, I don't want you there overnight. Like, I will take you, I will bring you back home. We will get up early the next morning, and I will take you again. And then I'm going to bring you back home.
How do they respond to that?
They think that I'm crazy until I start sending them the links Like I'm that parent that's like, I'm going to back up I'm going to cite my sources.
Yeah.
I am telling you this because this thing happened. I'm telling you this because this other thing happened. So I think they kind of get it, but they can't just come out and say, I get it. They got to kind of buck a little bit. And so there's always a balance between letting them be more independent and then still trying to protect them as best that I can.
Right. That makes sense. That seems like the best way to go about it. Continuing this, do any of your kids have kids yet?
So they do. So our oldest daughter has 3 sons, but they live far away. And so we only get to see them very sporadically. But our 23-year-old has a 4-year-old grand. And so that's our grand boo. Oh my gosh. And it's a totally different thing. Like everything my mama used to tell me all the time. I'd ask her, I'm like, Mama, you just love these grandkids, because she lets my kids get away with murder, right?
Yeah.
So I said, you didn't let us do that. And she would always say, well, it's different when they're the grands. And I was always like, oh, Mama, you just full of it. No, it's not. It should be different. But here comes the grand boo, and I'm like, oh, it's different. So,
what do you think is different? Like, why do you think that is?
Because there's a buffer. Like when you're parenting, you are responsible for guiding the children completely. You are responsible for teaching them, for all of that. But when you're a grandparent, there's this buffer of their parents in between. Theoretically, there's a lot of grandparents who are raising their grandkids, which is a different dynamic. Mm-hmm. But when you have parents in line, you get to be grandma. Like, so I get to be abuela. I get to, go and buy the little noisy toys, and I get to teach them how to tell stories, and I get to do all the fun stuff, because at the end of the day, your mommy's here. See you later, baby. Bye. Oh, daddy's home from work. Okay. Wait, I'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah. And
it's just more freeing, I think. It's just more freeing.
Yeah, then it must be like, yes, I'm going to grandma's house. I'm going to do anything I want. It's
yes.
Great.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. This one, his thing is the popsicles. Right.
Okay.
So he found out that my husband and I keep a secret stash of popsicles. And so he always comes to me and says, Abella, because he can't quite say abuela. He says, Abella, can I have a lollipop? Can I have one of your lollipops? And so the baby's eating popsicles all day. And I'm like, yes, you absolutely can. And so the teenagers are like, well, where are the popsicles? Don't worry about it. Mm-mm, those are for him. Don't worry about it.
What popsicles?
Yes, exactly. That's what they do. So.
That's great. Have any of your kids read the stories in this collection?
Max, oh my gosh. So I do have a couple of very avid readers in the ranks, and they're just now old enough that I'm okay with that. So I have one of my 17-year-olds, I kind of run stories by her a lot. And so if they read them now, I would not be quite as mortified as before. I think a couple of summers ago, I was doing a reading online, and they were like, well, send us the link so we can watch from the other room. And I had to really think about that. I was like, I don't know if I want y'all to see all of this. But I did send them the link. So yeah, they've seen a couple of them. They just think I'm weird mom, because I've always been weird mom. Even for my extra babies, because I kind of help to raise them anyway. So they've always been around me her whole life. Like, this is weird. We tell stories, and it's never going to be the Disney stories that we tell. We tell other stories.
So, any of them also interested in writing?
I wish. So I have 2 of them. One of my 15-year-old, one of them is, she loves to tell stories, like orally. And she loves to hear the stories. And so I've been talking to her a lot about the fact that she could be a writer. Like, I let her know, you can write movies. Like, that somebody sat down and wrote those screenplays. So I'm not sure if she's going to bite just yet, though. But the 17-year-old that I do run the stories by, she has started writing a couple of stories. And so, of course, I'm like that. I do abide by that age-old thing that, like, don't get too excited about stuff, and then they might actually do it.
Yeah.
Right? So she's telling me about the story, and I'm like, oh, babe, that's great and awesome. You should keep that up. Like, let me know if you finish it, right? But on the inside, I'm like, yes. Let's create this legacy. Let's create this writing dynasty, like, King and the Lansdales, right? I'm like, Yes.
That's the dream.
Yes, it's the dream. Right?
How do they get on with like the whole genre? Do they all like the spooky stuff, or was that a struggle?
So I have one kid who is very, very afraid of blood.
Mhm.
She loves horror movies, but when the blood comes, she kind of freaks out a little bit. So she has to tell herself over and over again, okay, it's just pretend. It's just pretend. And it helps some.
Yeah.
I have one that will just now start to do scary movies. He used to be the kid that as soon as we say we're watching a scary movie, he would take off. He was like, nope, nope. But now he will actually watch some of them as long as it doesn't involve creepy dolls. He still got this thing about dolls. It's like, yeah, I don't want no parts of that.
I get it. Have you seen those eyes? It's the eyes.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. This kid joined, so he's not a joiner kid,
Yeah.
right? So at school, he joined this one club. It was like a nerd brigade or something like that, which is perfect for him.
Mhm.
He stopped going. And so when I asked him, I was like, whatever happened to that? I mean, it's fine if you don't want to go, but what happened? He says, okay, this girl bought this creepy doll, and I just don't want to go to work. And I was like, that would be the thing that would run you away. So, okay.
Do you have a doll behind you? Is that what I'm saying?
I do. This is, okay, so this is a crocheted Blackula.
Oh my, that's awesome.
I mean, the craftsmanship on this thing, is that not the most beautiful thing?
That's excellent.
I mean, the sideburns, the blood, right? And so I got it from, there's someone on Twitter, Tales from the Stitch.
Okay, yeah.
I have these crocheted, and I've been eyeing this one since they first posted it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to treat myself. When I do something really extra great, I'm going to treat myself, and I'm going to get that doll.
Excellent. It's awesome. Yeah, I saw it the moment we began talking. I've been trying to figure out what it was.
Yes, he is at the place of honor here on the show.
Yeah. So when we talked about doing this episode, you said you could talk about tropes with Palance and Hill movies and books. What are some of the tropes you want to discuss?
Also, some of those tropes that I just find fascinating are, of course, the mother, just motherhood in general, like from pregnancy or even from the trying to be pregnant. But then also the carrying of what you don't know if it's going to be a monster or not.
Yeah.
And I mean literal monsters, like you don't know if it's the Antichrist or like you just don't know. But also, I think that we talk a lot about scary and weird children, but like what it's like to actually be a parent in these movies. Like, what is it like to be the parent of the monster? Like how do you handle that?
Yeah.
So, kind of the trope of the mother of the monster, I guess.
Yeah.
And then there's also the flip side to that like what Barbara Creed calls the monstrous mother. And so that I'm very fascinated by. Like a lot of my nonfiction work is essays about motherhood and how we view it and who do we decide is the monster, right? Like, are they really monstrous mothers or are they victims of society? Which I'm always leaning toward that side. Most monsters are victims anyway.
Right. So who are some of your favorite monstrous moms?
Okay, so I love Pam Voorhees. Like, of course, like I would totally be that avenging mom. Yeah, everybody's that. I absolutely love, and I never can think of, oh gosh, the black and white, her face is in, the name of the movie is right at the tip of my tongue. When she's having the Antichrist. Are
you talking about Rosemary's Baby?
Yes, Rosemary's Baby. Yes, something like that. Yeah. The name is right in it. So of course, Rosemary is wonderful.
That's a great movie. Also a good book. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like Sethy Suggs from Beloved by Toni Morrison.
Yes.
She is one of my favorites. I mean, because it's the poor thing suffered so badly, right? And it was just the whole way that all that happened. Just the thought that you would rather kill your kid than to have them be enslaved. And I'm like, I'm with that. I totally get that. I really get that.
One that comes to mind for me is I never know how to say his little name. It's either Gillian Flynn or Gillian Flynn.
Do
you know which one it is?
I think it's Gillian.
Jillian. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
She has a book out called Shape Objects. Have you read that?
No, I haven't, but I
It's
do love Flynn's work.
Yeah, that's a really good book. And also it was made into a mini series on HBO. Also pretty excellent.
Yeah.
Has one of the most screwed up mom daughter dynamics I've seen and read in a long time.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then when we think about those, you say that, and it made me think about Carrie.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I mean, her mom was just like a batshit bonkers. I don't know if I can say that. I'm sorry. But
Absolutely.
oh yeah, okay. So she was, but be dynamic. Like it was
Uh-huh.
just the fact that this helped to create Carrie and turned her into who she was. And so it's something we got to kind of look at, right? It's like, yeah, if you got a mama like that, of course this is what happens to you.
I've all I've always wanted King to write a prequel about the mom called like Maggie. I think it'd be great.
Oh my gosh, yes, because you want to know what happened to this person to make them turn this way. I'm always curious about those things. Like, what is your origin story?
Yeah. And like I recall in that novel those like flashbacks. Well, not flashbacks because of the way the book's written. It's like oddly structured, I think. But those like
Yeah,
diary journal entries of like the mom and she's talking about like being pregnant with Ill and like having Ill as a tiny baby and like the baby's like doing these telekinetic abilities. I just think that would be cool to like
yes,
explore as a baby.
yes. Well, I mean, and again, that would be the focus as the parent.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
right? And so Pet Cemetery
Mhm.
is one of the things that I like to tell people that, I mean, every time I read that book, it scared me for different reasons.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's most striking is the reason why I won't watch the remake. Like I only got so far in it and I had to like not finish it because I was like, this is just wrong. It's just too much. Like when you explore the idea that your child can die,
Yeah.
that is something that is just heartbreaking to me. And when they change those characters up, that is what did it for me. I could not finish watching it. I was like, oh no, I just can't. When it was Gage, it was bad enough.
Yeah.
But when it became the daughter, I was
Yeah.
like, oh no, she's big. Like she's been here for a long time. And no. No, I cannot do it.
It's funny thinking about King now specifically, but also like many other writers, you can kind of see like if they'll as prolific as King is, like will they all in life, you can kind of like graphic because like King has a really specific writing style and like plot idea of
Yes.
when his kids were young. And as the kids
Yes.
grow older, his books kind of change. But
Exactly.
yeah, and I don't know, like maybe you could even like group the the King generation books together, like, oh, these are his kid days, you know.
Yes.
I think a
Yes.
lot of writers will kind of like that, maybe. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think so because these things change you, right?
Yeah.
Like even if it's not the even if it's like our situation of blended families,
Mhm.
like you still that's a whole different dynamic also. So
Yeah.
like your mom, but you're like the extra mom. You know, you're not the mom, you're a mom, right?
Yeah, exactly. How did this collection come about? Like, I know you've been writing these as you had kids and everything, but how did it come together with the press and like as an actual book?
Yeah, well, so what happened was I've been primarily a short story writer, essay writer, so short forms. That's how my horror writing brain works best. I mean, I grew up watching The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt, those kind of anthology formats. And so they're my absolute favorite. And so I've always been a short form writer. So then I have all these short stories just kind of hanging around. And it was Gabino Iglesias.
Oh
So
yes.
Gabino came, I'm so glad he did. I was having an academic conference on my campus. I was pulling that together and I asked him if he would come and be our keynote. It was a wonderful thing. He is so amazing. Like I can't say enough good things about Gabino.
Yeah.
So he came, blew us all out of the water with the speech, and everybody loved it. And so as he and I are chatting, and I'm like, thank you so much for coming. He's like, okay, so what are you working on? And I go, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking about maybe a collection, short stories, maybe. I think I have enough. And he
Yeah.
goes, you need to do that. And every time, like, I would interact with him or something, he comes in the DMs. He's like, okay, how's that collection going? All right, so how's that going? But are you doing that? But are you doing that thing? And so finally I was like, okay, the only way, like, I have this motivation. He is motivating me. He's saying that it can be done. Apparently it can be done. So let's just see. Let's just pull them all together and let's just see. So I sent it out to a couple of presses. One of them, small presses, I mean, because, you know, the bigger ones aren't all that keen on collections all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I sent it out to one and got a response that said, this is great. We wish we could take it, but we only have limited resources. And I was like, I get it. Cool. That's great. Because at least that was encouraging. So then I sent it to the Seventh Terrace. So I had it out at two other places, sent it to the Seventh Terrace and got an email like hours later. And so one of those owners was like, Sarah over there, she says, thank you for sending this. I've read the first 3 stories. I'm already hooked. Consider yourself shortlisted. I do have to talk to Rob, you know, who was the other owner. She says, but I'm loving this. When I say she read it so fast, the only other response I ever got that fast was rejections from the Dark magazine.
Yeah.
Right? And so to have a short list and an acceptance that fast, I mean, it happened so fast that and she was genuinely enthusiastic. And I think that's the thing that really struck me, was that I could tell that she actually understood what the stories were saying. And she was excited about what I was trying to do. And that was really important to me. I didn't want to work with somebody who was going to say, oh, no, you got to change all these things, and basically taking all the voice out of it, or trying to make it more palatable. And so that was important. And then I had to unfortunately pull it from consideration with one other publisher because they made an offer. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. And I mean, I hated that, but I mean, that's business, right? And I am totally glad that I did that. I think this is the perfect place for this collection because they're really excited about it.
And it comes out in August, right?
It comes out in August, yeah.
When in August?
August 7th.
Excellent. So this episode will go live at the end of this week, which is July something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
I don't know what date. I don't know dates.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I assume it's at full pre-order. Amazon.
Yes.
Maybe.
Orders.
Excellent. I will have a link in the show notes for anyone who wants to go pick it up, and they should. I've read a few stories from it. Really good. I loved it, especially Mama's Babies. Oh man, that was a good one.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really creepers. Like, I made the mistake of reading that one in class one time. We were doing literary analysis, and I thought, well, I could just read this one. Oh my gosh. I stopped reading my own work when students started crying. Like, I had 2 students just bawling, and I'm going, no, that is not what I was trying to do. Now y'all gotta go home and tell your parents I'm traumatizing you, and I'm not going to do that.
That's excellent. I love it. Do you have any final thoughts about the collection or being a parent? Any tropes, anything like that you want to bring up that I maybe didn't ask you about?
No, I mean, I think that even people that kind of view parenthood from an outside perspective, as opposed to an insider, like, I think we kind of know that it can be rough. And even thinking about like the mom on Hereditary, like, I'm just terrible with names, but like, even thinking about that, like, trying to balance your own mental illness and your own trauma from childhood and still parent your own kids. Like, it's a thing. And so I just think that I would just say that I think we need to think about the parents a little more sometimes. Like, just like there are the creepy kids, they have parents. They have parents around. So kind of think about how scary that is.
Yeah. The old Simpsons quote shouldn't be, what about the children? It should be, what about the parents?
Yes, what about the parents? Let's just think about the parents sometimes. There's just so many avenues for fear there.
How can folks find you online?
Mostly on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I literally haunt Twitter at R. Jackson Joseph. But I do have a website being built. Like, it's actually being built now by somebody other than my teenager who kind of flaked on me, which is www.rhondajacksonjoseph.com. So it'll be live here soon.
Okay, great. I will have links to everything in the show notes of the podcast. For anyone listening, they want to check it out, I highly recommend they do. Go pick up this book. It's a great book. You will enjoy it. Enjoy it. You will cry. You will be disturbed. You will have a fun time.
Thank you, Max. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And that was LJ Joseph talking about Parents. Go buy the new collection, Hell Hath No Sorrow, Like a Woman Haunted, coming August 7th, 2022, just a few weeks away. Go pick it up. I recommend it. And also go on over to Ghoulishbooks.com. Buy some of the books I publish and write. Yeah, spooky books, you betcha.
Live spooky, die spooky.
Rest in peace, Max.